seen horrific anti-Israeli or anti-Semitic violence. There seems to be little distinction between the two anymore. This time in the US, in Boulder, Colorado. 6 people were injured in a firebombing. People literally set on fire for daring to join a protest demanding the release of Israel's hostages. People held hostage by Hamas for more than 600 days now. Yet the price of this peaceful protest was a fire attack by a man yelling, "Free Palestine."
Palestine is free, and for us.
Well, we can't do it when he's got Molotov cocktails.
The FBI are calling this a terror attack, and the alleged assailant, 45-year-old Mohammed Solomon, is in custody. This comes after 2 Israelis were shot dead in cold blood in Washington, D.C. last month. A young couple murdered simply for being Israeli. We've seen fire bombings here in Australia, of course, fire bombings of cars, a synagogue and a childcare centre. And we've seen threats against Israelis, celebrations of their slaughter and regular intimidation of Jewish Australians at protests. It's time that those who promote lies and misleading narratives and who shout horrible lines, it's time that they stop to think about the possible consequences of their actions. There is one evil entity in the current Middle East conflict, and it's not Israel or the Jewish people, and it's not the Palestinian people. The evil here is Hamas, and anyone saying or doing anything that either legitimises Hamas or gives succour to these Islamist terrorists or their death cult ideology, well, anyone who does that is being reckless. It's not okay to shout "river to the sea," echoing the Hamas slogan about eliminating Israel and all Jews from the Middle East. If you do that, you are part of the problem. It's not okay to scream about Israeli genocide, a hateful slur and one that's wildly inaccurate. The Palestinian population has grown faster than Israel's, and no country at war has ever taken such clear efforts to avoid civilians and warn them of attacks compared to Israel in this war. And it was Hamas who began this war by attacking Israel, not the other way around. So if you use a term like genocide against Israel, you are part of the problem. And it's not okay to claim that Israel is starving 14,000 babies to death, a clear lie, repeated by many. And it's not okay to say Israel is starving anyone when all the evidence shows any shortage of aid in Gaza has been caused by Hamas's stockpiling, profiteering and standover tactics. Yet this lie too is pushed by the UN and repeated by media and many politicians. If you accuse Israel of starving people and killing babies, you are part of the problem. People have a responsibility to get across the facts and not spout hateful lies. Now, granted, this isn't always as easy as it should be because much of the media, certainly organisations like our own ABC and major organisations like CNN and the BBC, effectively run propaganda from Hamas and lies from the United Nations. But the truth is out there. People can get across it, and they should, because the alternative is more of this hatred directed at Israelis, at all Jewish people and their supporters. And this is ugly and it's wrong. And if you can't see that, then we've got bigger problems in Western civilization than we care to imagine.
The devastating terror attack on a rally to free Israeli hostages in Colorado. This was a peaceful Sunday afternoon walk to show solidarity with the hostages and their families. And there are still 58 hostages held captive by Hamas, a terror organisation, after more than 600 days. Now, that shouldn't be controversial. Of course, innocent Israelis kidnapped need to be freed. Yet an activist yelling "End Zionists and Free Palestine" launched what the FBI has described as a terror attack on this peaceful protest that included many elderly people. Here's how it unfolded. The man firebombed the crowd of innocent Americans using Molotov cocktails and flamethrowers. People were set alight. It was mayhem.
Stay.
Now, 6 people were injured in this attack, but it's the ages that get me. They were 67 to 88 years old. The elderly, 88. One is in a critical condition. It's also been reported that some children suffered burns. Again, these are Americans. 911 was flooded with emergency calls around 1:26 p.m. And the suspect is an activist, Mohammed Solomon. He's 45. He was arrested by police at the scene. Now, it's been reported, although not confirmed, that he was an illegal immigrant who entered the US from Egypt during the Biden administration, and Fox News says he overstayed his visa.
And we can break to our viewers now. Per 3 senior DHS and ICE sources to Fox, according to our colleague Bill Malusian doing some great work, that he is an Egyptian national who is in the U.S. illegally because of a visa overstay who came during the Biden administration.
Now, the FBI is taking this very seriously. They had this to say.
This attack happened at a regularly scheduled weekly peaceful event. Witnesses are reporting that the subject used a makeshift flamethrower and threw an incendiary device into the crowd. The suspect was heard to yell, "Free Palestine," during the attack.
An organizer of the event, Jean Unger, told the Wall Street Journal that several members in her group were injured, including one who's a Holocaust survivor. She said, "The next thing I saw was big flames from behind me. There was a woman on fire and people rushing to try and help her. And other people had flames on their legs." And all this just a week and a half after Sarah Milgram and Yaron Lashinsky were murdered in Washington by a man also yelling, "Free Palestine." And this is the face of the Free Palestine movement. Vandalizing synagogues, murdering Jews outside a Holocaust museum, and burning the elderly during a peaceful walk. Jewish advocate Hen Mazig got it right when he said that this Free Palestine movement is nothing more than a violent threat to Jews. He wrote on social media, "You can't claim to be non-violent and pursue the annihilation of an entire country and its people. You can't claim to be non-violent and pursue ethnic cleansing of Jews. And you can't claim to be non-violent and attack people around the world in the name of Palestine." And of course, he's right. Enablers say the current anti-Semitism is only because of Israel's actions over the past 20 months. But don't forget that this global mass protest movement began immediately after October 7, before Israel had acted at all. It was kick-started by a massacre of Jews, the barbaric murder of entire families, as they begged for their lives in safe rooms wearing pajamas. And that massacre was endorsed by tens of thousands around the world who took to the streets week in, week out from day dot. Now, in my view, this is the playbook that we're experiencing. Criticise Israel with false claims of war crimes, famine, and deliberately targeting civilians. Turn Israel into the global oppressor. Dehumanise Israelis. Call for an uprising that begins as a protest movement and then morphs into a global intifada. Justify violence against those who support Israel, against Zionists, against all Jews. This is what we're experiencing now. This is the current wave of anti-Semitism. It's inextricably tied with anti-Zionism. AJAC Executive Director Colin Rubenstein said that Colorado and events like it show the inevitable link between hate-filled rhetoric and hate-filled violence erupting in our universities, streets and media. The Colorado attacker wanted to kill Zionists. Here in Australia, hate-filled rhetoric against Zionists is becoming normalised. And it's true that the terror attacks, the violence, even the murder of Jews in America and other Western countries are being excused by left-wing activists. The Australian reported how the assassination of 2 Israeli diplomats outside a Jewish museum in Washington has been met with a torrent of celebratory and incendiary responses from high-profile Australian pro-Palestinian activists. Because this is the reality of globalising the Intifada. We're seeing violence against Jews excused. The world, I'm sorry to say, is in a dark place right now. The left is morally bankrupt. I'm heartbroken and angry about it. I'm trying not to feel despair for the future because the new wave of anti-Semitism is excused as a political protest movement, as free speech. But it's no different. It's the same murder of Jews, the same violence towards Jews that we've seen in the past. The left can't pretend this is different. They can't turn violence into justifiable acts on account of it being anti-Zionism and supposedly fashionable. This is anti-Semitism, and we can't let them get away with it.
To Boulder, Colorado. Earlier today, the site of an act of terrorism, domestic terrorism, against a pro-Israel demonstration. People were set alight with a number of individuals seriously hurt, some with life-threatening injuries. This was among the first clips after the attack. In the chaos, you can see people running towards and away from the attack, and you can see the alleged attacker, Mohammed Solomon, to the left of your screen, topless and metres away from victims who he'd just set alight.
Stay.
FBI Director Kash Patel said the incident was a targeted terror attack. Let's have a look at this footage of the alleged terrorist shouting about Zionists as a badly injured woman is helped by brave individuals.
We're here. We're here, brother. We're here. We can't do nothing about that. We can't do nothing. We can. Not here. Not here, bro. You're not.
I'm taking video right now. He was wearing an orange suit with like something on the...
And in this clip, you can see the man continuing to rant about Palestine and calling the pro-Israeli protesters killers.
Palestine is trying and for us.
Well, we can't do when he's got Molotov cocktails on.
If you are fighting, you have the
That's what he's got right here. Is Molotov cocktails right there. It's alcohol. Get back, Mom.
Joining me now is author and commentator Shamika Michelle. Shamika, it's hard to believe that that's America, but there's no doubt that the anti-Jewish, anti-Israel sentiment has intensified in recent weeks.
You know, Rita, it's really sad. As you said, this is America, and this isn't something that I'm used to seeing, you know, being here all of my life, about 25 years. I'm just kidding. But, you know, it's just sad that we have to witness this. And it's sad that people just going out for a peaceful protest have to be harmed in this manner. And it really makes me upset that people would go out and do this to fellow Americans. I don't understand why Boulder is refusing to call it a terror attack. That's exactly what it is. But it just shows exactly how terrible the hold is the left has, that they just won't call a thing a thing. They never say exactly what it is.
Well, you're right about that because it seemed to be a clear case of domestic terrorism. There's so much footage of the incident and the alleged assailant saying what he's saying. And even after the FBI labelled it a terror attack, local authorities in Colorado were reluctant to do so. Let's listen to our Boulder Police Chief, Stephen Redfern.
FBI is already calling it a targeted terror attack. Would you also refer to it as a terror attack?
So I've been in contact with our local FBI multiple times. We are in contact with them here. We're not calling it a terror attack at this point. Again, it's way too early to speculate motive. I know there's a lot out there on social media, but I ask people just to give us a little bit of patience while we work through a really complex scene.
Shamika, why do you think this is? They are so reluctant to call a spade, even after it identifies itself as a spade.
I think they're just so used to lying. This is what mainstream media does, and they promote this type of behavior because someone behind the camera or behind the microphone should have called him on his foolishness. Because if the FBI has already determined this is what it is, what do you mean you don't know what the motive is? The man was hollering free Palestine. I just don't understand why we have to be so silly and pretend like we don't know his motive when it's clear.
Well, there were anti-Israel speeches at a number of universities across the US in recent days, including MIT. Let's listen here to the class president, Miga Vamuri, who spent her graduation speech advocating for Palestine and bashing Israel.
Last spring, MIT's undergraduate body and graduate student union voted overwhelmingly to cut ties with the genocidal Israeli military. You called for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. And you stood in solidarity with the pro-Palestine activists on campus. We are watching Israel try to wipe Palestine off the face of the earth, and it is a shame that MIT is a part of it. The Israeli occupation forces are the only foreign military that MIT has research ties with. This means that Israel's assault on the Palestinian people is not only aided and abetted by our country, but our school.
Shamika, these protests across university campuses are ongoing. We're seeing some of their top students using a moment where they're supposed to be celebrating academic excellence, devoting it to activism. What is happening in American universities? I thought the Trump administration was really looking at tackling some of these issues.
You know, I know it's going to take time, but I am so excited about them tackling these issues. The universities here are really just indoctrination camps. And I'm so glad this wasn't at my daughter's school. My two youngest just graduated college a couple of weeks ago. And I am so grateful that the speakers during their graduation ceremonies just really encouraged them. They applauded them for their accomplishments, told them how to go out into the world. It was not a political rally or something that had absolutely nothing to do with them. It just makes me upset that she took this time when other people were graduating as well to use this for her own, special soapbox. I would have been in the audience booing her and telling her to shut it up because this was just not the time or the place.